Where's he gone?
And again.
Welcome to the show. I swear I don't have an eject button that just pushes him out of the room. I promise that is not what happened. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian World Cup pod. I'm finally going to introduce it. Episode 2 of our World Cup specials. And as always, my name is Rory, and I'm joined finally by my very good friends,
Andy.
Adam and Andy eventually.
Here he is, here to stay, hopefully. Boys, so much to talk about, but before we jump in, Adam, how have you been, man?
I've been really good, thank you. Had a pleasant weekend and starting to embrace this World Cup in very fake ways. But more importantly, mate, how are you as well?
Yeah, pretty good. Did manage to get a bit of World Cup watching whilst in the office. So don't tell anyone, but I did watch the entirety of Netherlands Senegal, which was nice. But that was good. I enjoyed it. And of course, Andy is here. How are we doing, man?
Yeah, doing well. I've also been sneakily watching bits of World Cup. I was literally had my work laptop open, the screen open, and I was taking phone calls by just having my little phone here in the corner watching it, and then I conveniently timed my lunch to watch the second half of the England game.
Nice.
I think I still managed to watch. Put my poor old girlfriend through a lot of World Cup.
That's what it's about. It's about subjecting them to as much football until they give in. That's the tactic.
We usually have this category of, especially when I'm watching Man United, she was like, are you watching necessary football or unnecessary football? So if I'm watching necessary football, I've got carte blanche to put it on the big TV. Where if it's unnecessary football, put it on the laptop. And I've slowly just got to the point where all football is now necessary.
You've won.
The big TV.
You've won. You've absolutely
I think I might struggle in some games, such as Denmark and Tunisia or something. But
but it's vital. It's vital. That's honestly, it's one of the best things.
It's
about
research.
This podcast.
That's what you've got to claim.
Yeah,
research.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's one of the best things about this podcast. Is now I'm like, I've got to watch the game. I've got to talk about it tomorrow. I have to watch it. But I do need to say, and I'm not going to shout out the particular website, but I was using a website today to watch the World Cup. I may have paid for it, I may not, but I really need to say thank you to this feature that they have where you can click a button and it just stays in the little corner of your screen. So you can shift windows, everything, and it just stays there. So I was getting on with my work and the game was in the little corner. Absolute game changer, really did. So thank you, unnamed website. That was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. It was great. But we do need to go on to the World Cup, actually talk about the World Cup. And to start with, well, it was are they the worst team to ever play in the World Cup? Qatar took on Ecuador and it was less than convincing. We'll talk about the football, then we'll talk about the issues that kind of sprang from it, around it. I'm going to start with you, Andy. Qatar, did you expect more? I slightly expected more.
Well, they were getting a little bit of hype before the game, weren't they? Because obviously they were Asian Cup champions back in 2019, and they said a lot about this squad being together for a number of years, and ex-Barca, the youth coach. But then the stat came out that their star player had made a few appearances for Sporting Gijon back like 5 years ago or something like that, and most of them play within Qatar itself. They've had like 2 months. They ended their domestic season 2 months ago to prepare for this. I think they forgot to actually play some football teams in the midst of it, because they must be playing each other thinking, oh, you know what, we're
brilliant.
We're looking really good, boys. We're gonna smash it. And then as soon as they've come up against a team with some substance, they've absolutely fucked it. So yeah, I don't think they'll be. I think the locals probably wouldn't be too happy. I think they expected more, but they just looked. I think fitness as well. They didn't look match fit. A lot of them.
It was. It was kind of like, when we talked about Juventus, there was a game when they were walking and the other team was running. It kind of felt like that. It was like just a game at 2 different speeds. But we have to say, Ecuador, Enner Valencia, now level. Now, some of these names now level with, he got his 5th ever World Cup goal.
Messi. Yeah.
That puts him on the same number as Zinedine Zidane, Jeff Hurst, Romario, Platini, Beckenbauer. Incredible. And he could have had a hat trick. What did you think of the goal that was ruled offside, Adam? And then we'll get onto the goals that counted.
I don't understand it anymore, because even when you're introducing VAR, it's supposed to be clear and obvious, right? So if it's not clear and obvious, why was it introduced? But by the letter of the law, supposedly, because the second man who's behind the goalkeeper doesn't actually keep them active, which I don't know where the logic is with that.
Right.
That was the rationale for that being ruled off as being offside. But yeah, as far as I could see it, it was definitely onside, and that should have been a hat trick for Valencia, because he was superb yesterday. What about your thoughts?
I thought it was the most typical start to this tournament. I was like, oh, here we go. It's taken less than 3 minutes and there's been corruption. I think that was the definition of looking for a reason to rule out a goal, like looking for a reason. The goalkeeper was nowhere near it. You can't say he was fouled. Obviously, apparently, as you said, by the letter of the law, it was offside, but it looked like they were really looking for it. When the penalty came, I was like, they're gonna rule out this penalty. They're gonna come back and say it wasn't a penalty, but they didn't. Enner Valencia put it away cool as you like. Beautiful penalty. Okay, that goalkeeper, we can talk about him, Andy. I'll talk about the goalkeeper to you in a minute. But he was definitely going to jump first, right? There was no way that goalkeeper wasn't jumping first. But beautifully slotted away penalty. And I love that the Ecuadorians just kept doing overhead kicks for the lols. They just kept, every time the ball was in the air, they were doing an overhead kick. But Andy, what did you make of the goalkeeper? It was not his day.
No, he was. I mean, he was bailed out on the first goal, which I'm still convinced should have counted. I mean, he went into no man's land, didn't get anywhere near it, and his handling and just the general doing his job bit wasn't too good. And if he's like, I'd hate to see what the backup is.
Yeah,
if he's Qatar's best keeper, I really dread to think what is sitting in second and third reserves.
It just always makes me think of, because it's always like countries that aren't that great, they always have terrible goalkeepers, and it always makes me think, wow, actually being a good goalkeeper is really fucking hard. Like, it's really hard to be a good goalkeeper, because the second that happens, it stands out. And Andy, you could tell from the first minute, this guy was not going to be at it.
Yeah, I think the Ecuadorian players knew that as well, because obviously they just started doing overhead kicks, taking little pot shots here and there. Like, when you've played football, you can tell, like, if you're watching play football a lot, you can tell if someone's not too comfortable with the ball at their feet, or facing shots. I don't know what he'd been doing for the past 2 months, but
bouncing a ball off the wall, I think.
Yeah,
that's it. Like, I caught that one.
Yeah. Probably just been playing catch in the warm up or something. Going, I'm good.
This is easy.
But he just didn't look confident, and I think maybe they just on a competitive environment, because Qatar have basically played a few years of friendlies, basically, and friendly results can be deceiving. I think they drew with Ecuador like 3-3 or something like that in the lead up. So maybe they got a little bit of confidence from that. But at the end of the day, it's a World Cup, and it's proper serious stuff without wanting to state the obvious too much. And teams, that don't really give a shit about friendlies. I mean, the Italians are usually great at that.
We have a pen to Wales, by the way.
Oh,
we have a penalty to Wales. Yes.
Oh, we got some live drama.
Okay, Adam, I was going to ask you about Ecuador, but while you're watching that, I'm going to ask Andy. Ecuador did give away chances. Do we need to be worried? Qatar could have got a goal just before half time, and they could have got another one in the second half. Do we need to worry about Ecuador? Have they actually been tested?
I don't think they have been tested. I think it's a game where they never really got out of second and third gear, and I think it's still a bit of it's difficult to judge Ecuador based on that performance, because I think they're a little bit sloppy, mainly because of a little bit of complacency, to be honest. They knew that, they kind of had the game in the bag at 2-0, and they probably, if they absolutely needed to, could have got a couple of more. I think the defining point of Qatar's play that summed it up was when Cross came in and just went smack straight in his face. I mean, I love the enthusiasm. Well, it's a well-timed run, well-timed jump. It was just the execution that fell flat on its face, basically.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, I feel like Ecuador could have been exposed. Qatar were pretty awful, and it's when one of the first issues of this World Cup has come up, the attendance. Now, 67,000 was announced, despite the stadium only holding 60,000. And at half-time, everybody left. Around the 55... 1-1, there we go.
Gareth Bale.
Of course it was. Come on, Wales, get the winner now, boys. Come on. But in the 55th minute, everyone seemed to leave. And the atmosphere, I don't know about you, Adam, but from the first minute, the atmosphere to me felt really odd. It just felt like the crowd were like screaming at weird times. And there was no like...
Yeah.
It just felt odd. What did you think?
Yeah, it was very odd. It was reported by a lot of journalists, it has to be said, that it was kind of a weird atmosphere. It felt like it was a bit put on as well, and it was evident by the time you kind of saw the second half kick off, and there was a lot of empty seats. Now, it has to be said that the location of the stadium is miles away from where Doha is, by all means. So it's the longest distance, and there's nothing there. Apparently, there was quite a delay to get into the stadium. But that said, it did feel like they'd already got their money in their bank accounts. They were willing to leave that stadium. And there was a good clip by one of the Polish journalists. He actually kind of did like a panoramic view of the stadium. As the final whistle was blown, you saw the kind of stadium empty within 60 seconds. It was incredible. By that point, obviously, I think we could say that about maybe 60 to 50% of the stadium was probably still there by that point. But I mean, still, that was incredible. So for a fire evacuation, that was incredible. That was well timed. The
fire officer's well happy with that. Safety officer,
exactly.
There we go. But I feel like this is something we're going to see throughout the competition now, I think, because I saw reports of England fans not being allowed into the stadium, them having issues with their tickets. There's been issues with Wales fans not being allowed in with their rainbow bucket hats. There's been also, I feel like this is something we are going to see across the tournament, is that the stadiums will be empty. I think especially the second, most tournaments, when a host drops out, the national interest just completely disappears. There's no national interest already. Imagine what happens when Qatar inevitably go out without scoring a goal. I think it's going to be so awful to see, because there's so many football fans, including ourselves, that would love to be there if it had been affordable. It was not affordable, and now the thing's going to be completely empty. But look, that is not the worst thing that's happened this week or this day. So this morning, it was announced that England, Germany, France, Wales, and Holland, there was a few others would not wear the rainbow captain armbands, because FIFA said that if you do, you will be booked the second you come onto the pitch. Now, we'll get onto FIFA, but what I firstly want to say is it's not a protest if you back down at the first hurdle. That is not a protest. Like the Iranian players, literally risking their life and their family safety, refused to sing the national anthem in their first World Cup game, and the England players. I'm not even singling out Harry Kane because it wouldn't have been his personal decision. It would have been a decision as a team, as an organization. They couldn't even wear what was actually a pretty token gesture. It wasn't even a strong stance. It was a token thing of like, look, we're trying, and they couldn't even do that. Like, Andy, I'll ask you first. What did you think about this? It really depressed me.
Yeah, it is. Because, we've been a lot of people on various sides of the arguments have been like, well, come on then, do something meaningful. And literally up until yesterday, the intention was for to wear the armband. I mean, on Friday, before the weekend, it was quite, we're going to wear the armband. We're going to make our point. Gareth Southgate, really stuck his neck out and went, this is what we're going to do. We believe it's the right thing to do, and we're going to crack on and do it. And as you say, like, there's no point in doing a protest if you're worried about the consequences. If you look at what's going on in this country, people, our rail workers and our postal workers, they go on strike, even though they're already struggling, but they're not going to get paid, but they're doing it to fight for a bigger cause. And there's, there seems to be a massive unwillingness to take a yellow. I mean, Harry Kane, and also think about Harry Kane's a striker. He's not typically going to be picking up many yellow cards unless he's stupid. And if you're worried about a suspension, pass it on to somebody else for the third game. He could have easily found a way around it. I think it's just pretty gutless, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And I think it's what I've been surprised by, and I don't know about you, Adam, I'll get your thoughts in a minute, was that how heavy-handed and how determined FIFA have been about this. Like, it's not like they really are doing everything to stamp this out. So it's not like what they're asking for is understanding in terms of cultures, right? They're asking, this is their culture, respect their culture. Okay, I can see your argument. But they are being very, very heavy-handed with not respecting the culture of everybody else and the views of everybody else. On the same day or the day after, when Infantino made that ridiculous speech that we will also get onto about today I feel gay, today I feel whatever. Well, apparently today he wasn't feeling particularly gay. Like, what do you what do you take? Are you surprised by FIFA's behavior?
Not anymore. I think we've been calling out for a while that FIFA are, how do we put this delicately, not playing by the ethics of what fans necessarily want. And I feel like almost like they're going, I suppose, breaking their own kind of beliefs on what the World Cup should be. Because the whole idea is it's open. It's about trying to get cultures to mix in together. Yes, we should respect each other in the respect of, their laws, etc. But then when it comes to things like this, then we should have this open freedom and speech, right? Free speech as well is the most important thing. If Qatar have an issue with this, then clearly they shouldn't have been the host nation. We know why they're the host nation, and there's a lot of documentaries that will highlight this as well, to be fair. But ultimately, I feel like FIFA have failed their own ethics. They shouldn't really be like even the governing body. Like, the whole organization needs reform. When you've got someone like Infantino, who's probably going to be unchallenged for the next presidency as well, that stinks of hypocrisy now. Like, how can you say that's democratic if no one can fight against you? This is a dictatorship. It's being paid for. He's just making sure that he's cuddling up to his colleagues. We've also seen, as a result of his speech, that a lot of the kind of different subcontinents are backing him. So likes of South America, for example, saying to Europeans, just suck it up and get on with it. He said he's sorry, blah, blah, blah. Well, sorry, that doesn't really make it like an apology, I'm afraid. If people are afraid to turn up at this World Cup, but more importantly, there's a lot of unaccounted people that have died as a result of making this World Cup. then I'm sorry, then, the questions will continue to be asked. Now, I appreciate there's nothing we can do, right? And ultimately, it stems to even Russia, it goes to South Africa, and but Brazil. I could go on, right? There's been other instances. If you go back as far as, I think it was 78, was it Argentina?
Yeah, Argentina 78.
Again, another example of it. But there's nothing we can do as a pod about that. It happens. Unfortunately, FIFA hasn't reformed since the Blatter days, and it will continue to do so, unfortunately.
I think the really depressing thing is it's got worse since Blatter. I feel like Infantino, like Blatter was mental, and he would come out with mad stuff, like when he was on about the women's shorts should be shorter and then people watching women's football or whatever. It just felt like that embarrassing uncle, and then he would double down, and you'd be like, oh, what's he like? He's corrupt, but he just says daft shit. I feel like Infantino is genuinely like, he sees himself as a world leader now. He sees himself as level with the leader of Qatar and Bin Salman and whoever. He is like, it is proper dictatorial attitude. And like, even that speech he had before kickoff, that quick little 5-minute speech, that wasn't in the running order. Gary Lineker said that wasn't in the running order. That's him just wanting to have the camera on him for 2 more minutes, to have that, I'm going to have the last say before this tournament kicks off. Like, and you can disagree or agree with who the leader of Qatar is, but if the leader of FIFA thinks he's above the head of state of the country he's in, I think we've got a problem. Like, I think there's a real messiah complex or something.
You know what? I think he's got a little bit of small man syndrome, and there's a couple of reasons for this. So first of all, during World Cups, typically FIFA dictate everything. You know, when you look at the lead up to the South Africa, even the Russia and the Brazil World Cup, if FIFA wanted you to bend the rules to facilitate their fan parks, facilitate this, that, and the other, if FIFA told Brazil jump, they would say how high, and it would get done. And it really feels like this World Cup, the power dynamic is completely different. Infantino is just basically, he's just shouting noise. Like, he's got no power. Qatar have told him what to do this World Cup. FIFA have said, oh, we're going to get concessions on alcohol. We'll be able to sell alcohol in the stadiums. We're going to be able to do this. You're going to be able to do that. And in the lead up to the World Cup, suddenly Qatar are back on their intolerable bullshit about LGBT rights. They said, nope, you're not having alcohol in the stadiums. And I reckon this backlash over armbands, that's, for me, I don't have any proof, it's probably fair to say, but I wouldn't be surprised if Qatar have had a word in the lead up to these games and gone, Gianni, mate, cut that out. And it feels like Qatar are in charge of this World Cup rather than FIFA. And I think he's just trying to make himself seem more important than he is.
No, I like that take. I think it's also like, it's when people kicked up a fuss about the alcohol decision being reversed, for example, everyone was like, oh, I'm sure you can have fun without beer. Yeah, that's not the point. The point is that they're reversing a decision 2 days before the tournament. What else are they going to reverse on? This isn't going to be the first thing that they reverse on. And guess what? It wasn't the first thing they reversed on. So it was definitely like, these are the symptoms. And you're right, Andy. I think they are completely running it. And maybe Infantino is just screaming into the abyss, but I feel like he's recently moved to the country. He's living there now. He is definitely making a concerted effort to be as bootlickery as possible to these people and to accommodate them as well. I think he's not putting up a resistance to it. He's definitely accommodating to it. But yeah, Adam, your thoughts on Infantino and how we possibly got worse than Blatter?
I don't know. I thought we'd got beyond Blatter at the first stage, but unfortunately Infantino adored himself to the general executives at FIFA by saying he was going to bring reform, make sure corruption wasn't there and it didn't exist. Unfortunately, the work was already done by the fact that Blatter had invited Qatar into this process and made sure that they won it. There's lots out there if you want to go and do the research, it says it there, but unfortunately Infantino is just making sure that he arse licks everyone to make sure he doesn't get the chop, essentially. He wants to be in the top job, as you say, small man syndrome. He wants to be the man at the top of the table. And yeah, unfortunately, we're going to have to deal with that until like maybe nations decide to break away, a bit like the Super League. Maybe that's the only way we can do it.
Breakout FIFA. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to like dwell on it too long. I can't believe I'm watching that FIFA doc on Netflix. I think I said it on the pod, but I can't believe we got rid of Blatter and we got worse. I just can't believe it. I'm watching that whole documentary. I was like, oh, this is really good. Rooting out the and then remembering where we are now. Christ, it was all for nothing. It was all for nothing. But yes, he has confirmed himself now. He is in charge for the next 4 years. He ran unopposed, so he is in charge again. We will see. I don't know what happens with the America-Canada because they're hosting it next. We don't know who's hosting
Mexico
it after them
as
yet,
well, isn't it?
Yeah, and Mexico as well. So we'll see what happens, but I can't see it getting better anytime soon. Hopefully, the teams that have kind of backed down on this protest do actually decide to do something. I'm waiting for one player to just have the balls to do something. Something, anything to kind of show that we still care. Because if I was LGBTQ plus, I would be so disheartened today that like what the cost of the protest was a yellow card. When later in the game players were diving, which is the risk of a yellow card. And it's like, that's the price that you put on not making this protest. It would just feel like all the years of progress that's happened in the Premier League, in football, in the UK, everywhere, in terms of like acceptance of LGBTQ plus people is just all out the window now. Because actually when the heat's on, none of it counts. So it's really depressing, isn't it? It's really depressing, but we should, in a very quick change of gear, actually talk about the football as England absolutely smash in Iran that I expected to be much better than they were. Andy, your initial thoughts from this game before I just go on about Bukayo Saka for an hour?
No, I'll give you your Buyakis. I'll give you your 2 minutes of Saka love. I think you deserve it, and you've been building up to that all season. But no, I think England as a whole, it's a really convincing performance. And we were just saying just before we came on there that how England have historically struggled to get past opponents. I mean, remember the likes of struggling against, Algeria, Trinidad and Tobago, getting beaten by the Iceland in the Euros. Like we never really make it easy for ourselves in major tournaments. And yet this felt like an inevitability from start to finish, which I think was really, really refreshing. I think also what's encouraging for England is it felt like a proper team performance. There's still, one of my favourite moments, right, was right towards the end of the game. Callum Wilson setting up an assist for I think it was received Raheem Sterling towards the end, where he just passed it across goal, completely unselfish, and we just tapped it for Grealish's goal. For Grealish's goal, he just tapped it across goal. Could have easily scored himself. Could have easily taken the shot. With a few nil up, doesn't make much of a difference. I think we're 5-1 up at that point. But no, he squared it across for a tap in. To have what was it, 5 different scorers says a lot. And I think whilst you give some Saka love, I'm going to give some Jude Bellingham love.
What a player, man!
That boy is different gravy.
Yeah,
I mean, all right,
he's just unbelievable.
I suppose I'm doing the typical English thing of hyping up players, but you can only play who's in front of you. But we've seen Bellingham do it for Dortmund against much, much better opposition, and he just has absolutely everything in his game. Yeah, he's really is a fantastic all round. I mean, he's 20, and he's already 19, 20 years old, and he's already a nailed on starter for England. Yeah. I mean, he's going to end up like 150 caps or something ludicrous if his career continues the way it is. It's it feels like we've got a proper that midfield of Rice, Mason Mount maybe not so much, but A bit iffy, but
Yeah.
Declan Rice and Bellingham is probably among the best midfield duos I think I've seen England rock up with in terms
I think.
of
Well, I
how
think
they
I
work
said it.
together.
Sorry, yeah, I said it on a previous pod that when me and friend of the show Tom were talking about it, we were looking at the England midfield and going, "That's one of the best in the tournament, I think." And like, I think look, Mason Mount gets a lot of stick. I think he does the simple things well. He's not flashy, but he's not an exciting player. I get why people have doubts. I have doubts about him every so often, but I think alongside Rice and Bellingham, yeah, unbelievable midfield. Yeah, Bellingham is just, I'm in love with him. Just please, Arsenal, just spend all the money in the world to get him. I would love to see him at Arsenal. But Adam, what did you make of England's performance? We went a long time without scoring goals, went a calendar year without a win, and it all kind of just disappeared. It's incredible.
Yeah, you have to give it its due. I think they did a professional job over Iran. I thought Iran were a bit disappointing, and I don't know whether they were caught up in emotions potentially because of what they've just done as an act. But that said, obviously, I think first half I was expecting maybe a little bit more, especially that concussion to the goalkeeper. I think also
That was wild.
may have changed the kind of way the game was going as well to an extent, because at that point, I think England were just getting into momentum down that right-hand side, especially with Trippier, who was putting in a few through balls as well as a few crosses. And I think they were a bit wary at that point. Then Iran, for a period of time, were getting a bit more into the final third, but I felt like they were still comfortable. Fair due to Harry Maguire, it has to be said, he had a really good game, really endorsed the fact that, Southgate put that trust into him. And I mean, just the quality really did tell. Go on, Andy.
I was going to say, I think Harry Maguire needed that performance.
Yes.
I've not seen him look that composed for the best part of a year or so. And I think I'm just really happy for him personally, because he had a real tough time of it. He's lost his place in the England squad. He's had a really rough 18 months in terms of form. He gets a lot of unnecessary abuse from a lot of Manchester United fans and people in general. So yeah, I think he deserves that. I think his challenge will be to continue that against better opposition. Yeah, but I'm happy for him, definitely.
Do you think he looks a bit more like calm, composed, like more than he's ever been in the last maybe 12 months? I haven't seen like a performance like that maybe since maybe the last World Cup, dare I say, or maybe Euros.
Euros, I would say Euros.
Yeah. I mean, he just genuinely looks like he was at home, like no care for the world. Didn't have to worry about any abuse from the terraces, or
I think that makes a big difference. I think that makes a big
difference for him. He didn't have to worry too much. And on the midfield, I thought they were really, really good. I mean, we're talking about Jude Bellingham. Rice looks really good, and even Grealish and Sterling, they looked really on like song, considering these players haven't been on greatest form of late for their clubs as well. I thought they did really impressively well. I'd worry about Iran. If they were to try and get out of this group stage, they have to do a better performance in the next two games, and it just doesn't look possible, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's weird because Carlos Queiros's teams are usually very good at defending because that's all they tend to do. So I was surprised that they were really were not at it. But I think you made a good point with the fact that there's a lot of emotion in the performances for Iran at the moment. I think them being at the World Cup is an achievement, and them playing is like their way of being like, we're still here. And they in the post-match conference, post-match interview, I think it was the captain came out and spoke out against the government as well. There is a lot going on in their heads. So I think it's all within a massive parentheses, I suppose. I am going to talk about Bukayo Saka. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think even the Iranian fans, especially some of the women, were making their own voices very, very heard. So it's worth pointing out that for many, many years, women weren't allowed to watch football in Iran, and apparently, even though officially speaking that rule has been lifted, apparently it's still a little bit iffy to say the least. And they've certainly made their voices heard and shown more balls than a lot of the countries. It feels like maybe in England and Holland, maybe there's a bit of a less of a connection between what is real hardship. I think potentially, whether that's intentional or otherwise, I don't know. But Yeah, I think that's a lot of it what it's down to. Whereas, with the Iranian players, they're a lot more connected to what's going on in their country, and a lot
Yeah.
closer to the people in it that are suffering that regime day in and day out. And I think maybe that's what's made him feel more compelled to actually do something.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a result of living a comfortable life is that you don't have to worry every day about what your government's at, right? Or what's happening in your country. It's just a natural result of it. It's no one's fault. It's just what happens. And I think, yeah, you see, I haven't grown up in an unstable country as none of us are, so we don't know. But I imagine that, yeah, you have to stay fairly plugged in. But fair play to all of them for being brave enough to do that, because it is real what's going on down there, and it's pretty scary. But again, in a gear shift, we keep having to shift gears in this show fairly quickly. I am going to talk about Bukayo Saka just for 5 minutes, because what a performance. He was incredible. I love how he steps up every time when he gets to a new stage, and his record for England now is pretty fucking mad. He's got quite a few goals for England. And I feel like it was just another great performance from him. He's been in incredible form this season. Both of his goals were beautiful. And yeah, I'm just delighted that he's a key player for England. And I think he's like, alongside Bellingham, he's one of the first names on the team sheet now. It's like, okay, Saka at right wing. He's the best right winger we've got. And it was just two beautiful goals. Great performance from England. Great performance from Saka. Keep going. Keep it going. And he got player of the match. He had his trophy. I was so proud. Anyway, we're going to leave England and Iran there, and we're going to move on to the next game, which was a game I did enjoy. It was a bit end-to-end. I feel like either team could have won it, but the team who did win it necessarily didn't deserve it. We need to talk about Edouard Mendy and Kepa. They obviously ran into each other and swapped bodies at some point. So I don't know what has happened to Edouard Mendy. But Adam, I'm going to start with you. What did you make of this game and Edouard Mendy?
Edouard Mendy, if we start off with him, his form hasn't been great for Chelsea. He just seems a shadow of himself from the season that Tuchel brought him into that Chelsea team. He's definitely not got the confidence, it feels like, at times. In this match, to begin with, he didn't seem too bad, in fairness. I thought he made himself a bit assured with that defence, but that was probably helped by the fact that Netherlands didn't really, to be fair, do much on goal. There's a few vehicles, like wonder shots, I think, if that's the best way to describe it.
He made his appearance. We saw him, Adam.
He did. But yeah, even Vincent Janssen as well made his appearance at the stage as well. But I mean, yeah, I wasn't that enthralled by this match, I have to say. I think Senegal just missed Mane. If Mane was playing, I think there would be a different story altogether. And I think Senegal, you're right, they were very unlucky that, they just didn't have that bit of quality. If it wasn't for that just bit of composure and potentially that threat, then yeah, at times, because I think Van Dijk almost gave away the ball in his own areas as well at one point, and it just was one of those that if there was someone with a bit of quality, then you never know, it could have gone the other way. But yeah, when he obviously, the first one, when Gakpo came in, headed it in, I mean, you're just like, what are you doing? Like, you despair. And then the second one was even worse because he kind of just handed it into Klaassen, and Klaassen just slammed it home. So by that point, it was game, set, and match. So yeah, I mean, I did see a quote from Alois Cisse afterwards. He said, "You can blame me all you want, but unfortunately, goals wins you games," and that's what happened in this match. And that pretty much sums up this match. Don't know what you thought of it, but personally, that's what I saw.
Yeah, I just felt like, well, I put it on Twitter in the WhatsApp group. I just said Senegal had been the better team, but they're still going to lose 1-0. You could just see it from a mile off. You could see it from a mile off. The experience, I don't know what it is, but you could just see that Holland weren't panicking. They weren't getting stressed. They were just like, and I felt like Senegal kind of started to look like they knew it wasn't their day. They started to just be like, faces drop a little bit of like, oh God, why isn't this happening? And Holland just sort of got the job done. I feel like the run from Gakpo and the header, both the run is incredible. The ball's incredible. Edouard Mendy has to do better. Andy, why can Chelsea only have one good goalkeeper at a time? I don't understand.
I mean, I think they have honestly swapped bodies. But to be fair, though, it's not a surprise development, is it? Edouard Mendy has lost his place in the Chelsea squad. I think he came back for the last game or so because of an injury to Kepa. But, generally speaking, he's not been in good... If you speak to a lot of Chelsea fans, Mendy's not been in good form for quite a while. And like I said, unfortunately, he had a bit of a clanger. For the first goal, I mean, maybe he was beaten by the quality of the delivery, the timing of the run, but you can't come out of your goal to go and punch it and then punch, thin air, like, as TLC once said, you can't go chasing waterfalls, and that's exactly what he did. Yeah. I don't know why I needed to get that reference in, but here we go.
I always appreciate a TLC reference. I always appreciate
we're showing got age now, aren't we? They were a banging girl band back in the day, but anyway, I digress. And for the second goal, I mean, that is a keeper's worst nightmare. I mean, he should have caught it or just palmed it somewhere a bit different.
He just pushed it into the worst possible place.
Yeah,
it was just anywhere else, and you're kind of all right. But yeah.
But I thought it was quite apart from that little bit of quality by Gapco, I think it was quite a poor quality game. And Louis van Gaal, in typical Louis fashion, I love the bloke. He's hyped up a team, going, "This is better than the team that won." That got to, the third place in the World Cup in 2014. And I'm sorry to tell you that it really fucking isn't. I mean, if you've got Vincent Janssen starting football matches in a major tournament, you've got issues. David Blind is still rocking up at left wing back. It's and they've brought on and if you look at their bench as well, I think the only real game changer they would bring off the bench is a half-fit Memphis Depay. He can't get a game at Barcelona at the moment. Granted, he's had injury problems, but Davy Klaassen, who barely got a kick at bloody Everton and looked lightweight. Martin de Roon, who I know tends to cause a fair bit of debate, but he's a serviceable player, but he's not going to change the game for you, is he? Obviously, we've watched him enough in Serie A. Koop Miners, I think, does have a bit of talent, but it's not a vintage Holland squad by any stretch of the imagination. Nathan Ake looks a bit ropey. Matthias de Ligt as well got himself booked and didn't look particularly great. I think with a bit more quality, I think Holland will come unstuck. To be honest with you, they've got to play a lot better than that if they're going to get far in the tournament.
Yeah, I think the comfort for them is that in the group, that's their hardest game. That is the toughest game. So now they're like, okay, as long as we stay sensible against Ecuador, Qatar could be bloody ugly. Whatever score that, I don't feel like Van Gaal is the type to go like 3 goals and sit back. I feel like he might fancy a bit of a drubbing. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, unlucky for Senegal, but good for them is that was their hardest game. Now they can play Qatar. They can hopefully, they could get something against Ecuador. I think this isn't the worst thing in the world. It's just important that they put it behind them, get past it, move on. And then the last game, I think this is the last game we need to talk about. I can't keep up. Is Americans hate a tie. They hate a draw. Well, they got a draw. They've just drawn 1-1 against Wales. What does this mean for the group? I thought that America were going to be worse than that, and I thought Wales were going to be better than that. Adam, what do you make of that result?
Just looking through just briefly the second half whilst we've been talking, it did feel like Wales were growing into the match itself towards the end. So I felt like it's a typical workman-like Wales side. Maybe not got the quality of probably America in comparison, but obviously in someone like Gareth Bale, that's their talisman, for example. Ramsey particularly seemed to be just recycling the ball, keeping hold of it, just making sure it was being spread out. Dan James didn't have a particularly good game here as well, but they have got some really exciting youngsters. Connor Roberts on the right-hand side. You got Nico Williams on the left-hand side. So I think the wing-backs are going to be critical for this campaign. And it's just a question of whether they use Kiefer more with certain games as well, because I think he's going to be one of the outlets for Bale to maybe, go and play around him as well. So I think, it's probably expected, like you say, I was expecting actually USA to be worse than actually maybe they showed in the first half. I think they were quite clever with the way they kind of played some intricate passing to kind of create the space, and they did show it with that Timothy Weah goal. I mean,
great,
it's great
nice
to
little
see
finish
that
as
goal.
well.
It was
Very
beautiful
nice
in that
finish,
respect, but they showed that kind of Pulisic drag and then creating that space. And that's what he's good at. He is good at just getting the ball into spaces or creating space and then threading in that one ball that creates a goal. And I think, maybe Chelsea should have a look at that video and see whether they could use him to do likewise at Chelsea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do worry about this USA side because they don't look particularly great at the back. Aging Tim Ream, he seemed to struggle a few times, it has to be said, towards the end. But that said, they do have some pacey players, right? So Gino Dest, he seemed to be bombing it towards the end of the match because, like you guys, I don't know if you managed to see it, but it was pretty much end to end in that last 9 minutes of injury time. So it could have gone either way. There was one time that I thought Wales had thrown it away, but yeah, it could be interesting. So I think in terms of England, it looks like if you're basing it on today's game, I think they should be number one. And then it's a question of who's better out of these two. Maybe in terms of results, that's where it's going to be decided. So it just might go down to goal difference. Dare I say it?
Yeah, I was just about to ask Andy, anything that you saw between those two teams that England need to worry about? Here's the moment where you set yourself up for a big fall, but anything that England need to worry about?
I think I think both teams have got the standout players to be able to cause moments. England are prone to the defensive fuck up every now and then, and so I don't think you can be in any way complacent, and you're still going to have to play really, really well to beat them. So I wouldn't underestimate them, and I think it would be. I'm not going to jump into that sort of pundit, typical tabloid pundit trap of going, "Oh, this will be easy."
Gareth's at the wheel, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those. Should we beat them? Probably, but it doesn't necessarily mean they will. And I think with the US, there's a few of their players lacking a bit of fitness at the moment, which I think is why they faded a bit towards the second half. So obviously, with the MLS best players like Walker Zimmerman, for most of them, their season ended a good few weeks ago, and it was only really those involved in the MLS Cup final that would have been in any way sort of match fit. Weston McKennie's had his injury problems at Juve. He's not figured too much. Serginho Dest has barely figured for AC Milan since joining there on loan.
I forgot he was there. Yeah. I was about to say Barcelona.
Matt Turner isn't exactly playing much football himself either. He's probably not going to unless he goes on loan somewhere. And I think with Tim Ream, he's getting a bit old and played too much football, poor bloke. And to be fair, I think with the other centre back, Walker Zimmerman, he plays for Nashville. And to be fair, he's actually one of the US's best centre backs. He's actually quite decent, to be fair to him. Like to the point where I feel like he could do a job in Europe for a team.
Wow.
And I think if the US had someone slightly better than Josh Sargent up front for them, they would have won that. There was a point in that first half where he basically had a free shot at the near post and missed it, and a better quality striker would have scored that, especially against Wayne Hennessy, which I thought was going on to Wales, a bit of an interesting
choice.
Pick. I mean, I know I made a pun in the group chat, which I'm not going to repeat on here, but it was
we all know the joke.
It was certainly an interesting pick ahead of Danny Ward, who had a bit of a ropey start to the season, but to be fair to him, he's turned it around along with Leicester. And I think with Dan James as well, I think his limitations have been showing up again, because I think the initial intention was stick Dan James up front and really push him for pace. And I think maybe the Welsh squad have underestimated the fitness levels of Serginho. Dest is, he might have limitations of his own as a footballer, but he's not a slow coach by any stretch of the imagination. And he was able to cover really, really well from that side. And I felt his effect was nullified. I think that's why I ended up bringing Kiefer Moore on, who again, I thought it was a bit interesting that he didn't start. So
I thought they'd go for him, to be honest. I thought he'd just offer them something that maybe kind of challenged Tim Ream, or give the centre back something to think about. I feel like there just wasn't much. It was a bit toothless at the beginning for Wales. I was really impressed with the press from America. From the US, sorry. I thought they were like really, you can tell that they know the system. They're well drilled, and that press really, Wales can deal with it first half. But yeah, I'm gonna be bold and say I'll be the one who gets clipped. I'm gonna say there's nothing for England really to worry about there, except that Wales is a derby, so you never know. Except I'm gonna put that caveat in. But that is all the games we have seen. And before we preview the games we are going to see, we're going to introduce a new little feature and talk about our favourite man, Richard Keys, after this.
Please, it was just banter.
Here he is. It was just fun. I love it. It's been a big week for Keezy. It's been a big week. After 12 years, as he put it, after hypocritical and scandalous criticism, the FIFA World Cup starts today. We have the most diverse set of pundits today in John Terry and Gary Neville. I genuinely cannot imagine a worse couch to be sat on than Andy Gray, John Terry, Richard Keys, and who did I miss? Gary Neville. Yeah. Rather you than me. And then the tweet that really got me was so far so good. I'm sure somebody will find something to complain about. But I've been greeted with warmth and whisked into the stadium ahead of schedule. As long as they're letting Richard in early, everything is fine. Guys, stop moaning about it. Stop it. How much are you enjoying Richard Keys at the moment? We're about to see some world-class levels of Richard Keys, I think.
Oh, he's odious, isn't he? He's so fucking odious. I cannot stand the guy. I mean, like, his Sky Sports days were bad enough. Like, he was so static at times, and his opinions just so archaic. I don't know why Andy Gray kind of hangs about with him, but yeah, I suppose they are.
I feel like they've
in
both
each other's
got
pockets. To be fair, yeah,
they've both got something on each other. So, like, if we stick together, I can keep an eye on you. You know, you're not dobbing me in. But he did have a big week. He then also, a video which really tickled me, got absolutely pied off by Ruud Gullit as he tried to say hello. And what I always like is the fact that Andy Gray, despite what you think about him, was a bloody good footballer and had a very good career. And then Richard's just like his weird little mate who stood there. So, Andy, did you enjoy seeing him get pied off by Ruud Gullit?
Oh, I mean, seeing so see Richard Keys get pied off is always pleasurable at any given moment. I think it's come as a bit of a shock to us because we've not had Richard Keys and Andy Gray on our screens for a very, very long time. They're kind of shoved in they've been for the past few years shoved in their own little corner of being sports. And the only time I come across, I'll say just before we came in there, the only time I come across it is when I'm watching a Manchester United game that's not on Sky or BT, and I've had to find alternate methods as an example, in case anyone's watching. And you've ended up seeing like Richard Keys surrounded more often than not by Nigel de Jong, who he's somebody I never feel sorry for, but I do, because he's just sat there most of the time just going, who are these two fucking idiots? And yeah, you know,
stop going on about Sam Allardyce.
Oh man, I mean, at least Andy Gray's played football. He's played the game. He understands it. But yeah, Richard Keys just doesn't, and it's just nauseating.
Well, listeners and viewers, every so often during the World Cup, I'm not going to promise every show, but I think there'll be enough content. We're just going to drop in and check how things are doing with Keezy. And if you ever want to sit and have a laugh, just click on any of his tweets and read the replies, because it is the same 5 jokes sent to him about 1,000 times. And I just love the idea that every tweet he has to ignore the same joke over and over and over again. It's always the same. It's just hilarious. But, Richard, it's just banter. And with that, we are going to move on to previewing the games that are coming up. We're going to do tomorrow and Thursday day, because we aren't going to talk until Thursday evening. So
there is a Wednesday involved in this as well.
Sorry?
There is a Wednesday in between those 2 days.
Oh, God, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Right, okay. Let's talk about the games of the day each day. Let's do that. So tomorrow, the games are Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Denmark, Tunisia, Mexico, Poland, and France, Australia. Now, I'm going to hazard a guess that, Adam, you would like to talk about Poland, Mexico?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Let's
it has
do
been
it.
brought up. This could be a very big game in terms of deciding who finishes potentially second behind Argentina, because Argentina obviously facing the might of Saudi Arabia. So we're expecting a tight game there, right? But on a really tough kind of game between Poland and Mexico, it could decide who finishes second, purely because I think both sides see weaknesses in each other's games. We talked in our preview about, Tata Martino. He's not getting a rapport from the fans at the moment, and they're relying on the likes of Hirving Lozano, who's doing really well at Napoli. On the flip side, you've got his teammate in Zielinski doing quite well as Robert Lewandowski. And we've got some interesting players, Jakub Kiewel at the back, for example. We've got Sebastian Szymanski, who's doing it for Feyenoord at the moment, as well as a number of different players. It will be a question of who can dominate the other and maybe control a match. There's been a lot of talk about this being quite tight, and we'll just play it directly to, create opportunities. We've got some good quality players off the bench as well, like Milik, for example, and Piontek, for example, that could be brought on. I'm potentially thinking this could be a draw, and then it'll be just down to goal difference in the other game. So I think it could be as tight as that. But what's your thoughts?
I'm pretty excited for this game. I think it could be a really interesting one. I think it's going to be hopefully it's two teams that go for it. I think both teams have to be trying to beat the other one, right?
Yeah.
There's not like an underdog. There's not like it's kind of fairly level. So I'm hoping it turns into both teams kind of trying to duke it out. We've talked about Poland. I'm pretty excited about their squad in general. I think there is enough quality there to kind of put teams to the sword. I just hope they're adventurous enough. I just hope they try and go for it. The other game in this group is not, Argentina is just going to be how many, I imagine, as opposed to
Argentina do have form for racking up some big totals.
Yes.
When Argentina want to turn it on in the World Cup against a minnow, they don't take it. I think Lionel Messi, it'd be one in particular. I mean, if you think about it, he's probably coming into it the best form he's been in for the past couple of years, because he's got his fitness back, and he's really shown he's still up there, one of the best players in the world this year. And I didn't expect that turnaround with Messi. I thought it was starting to see a slow decline for him from what we saw last season, but it feels like for a lot of Argentina's players, this is a bit of a last hurrah for them, certainly at their peak. And I think for Lionel Messi especially, this is commonly regarded that it's going to be his last World Cup. And I think Argentina's weakness over the years has typically been in defence, but they've actually started to look quite solid there. And Lisandro Martinez, I think this will be a very big tournament for him. So I think they're going to batter Saudi Arabia tomorrow, and maybe Qatar might look at this game tomorrow afternoon and be like, "Oh, maybe we're not the worst team at the World Cup."
Cheers, boys. No, I think you're right. I think Messi is it feels like he's been keeping himself fit at PSG for this World Cup, and I think that everyone in that Argentina squad wants this for Messi. When they wanted him to win the Copa America, so he had that.
They kept playing a Copa America every single year till we won it.
until he won. That's true.
Maybe that's going to be Gianni's next batshit mental idea, is that we just have a World Cup every single year.
Just keep it always in Qatar. Just keep it here. It's all there now. We'll just stay there. Nice. So on the next day, which I'm losing track, is now going to be Wednesday, we have Group D. Now, France and Australia will play tomorrow evening, expecting France to win that. But France now without Benzema and Christopher Nkunku, it's all looking like France will be fine. But that's two big names that they're missing there, Adam. What do you think? How big a difference do you think that could make for them? Or will the beautiful man that is Olivier Giroud just deal with
I think you've stolen my thunder. I felt like they'll revert back to Didier Deschamps, the winning squads, where they had Giroud as the key man. Mbappe will probably play off him, and it sounds like the harmony is there between them two as well. So I think they've still got quality within the side. They just might have to maybe change it up. And I think if you think about France going into this tournament, we kind of said the depth is there. Like, even if you had one injury, you can pull in someone else. And I appreciate these are two big name players, like maybe less so in Nkunku, but certainly Benzema, definitely. And interesting developments I saw off the result of that was potentially Real Madrid potentially trying to get Ronaldo from Man United as a result of that for a 6-month loan. So we'll see if that actually transpires. But regardless, if we just talk World Cup, I think France should be okay. They should be okay.
I think they'll be all right. But I just feel bad for Benzema. This was his thing. And I know he's like a complicated person, but I kind of, just won the Ballon d'Or, and finally could he claim that trophy that he missed out on with France because he's a complicated person? Was this his chance to redeem himself? And he's not going to get the chance. But
I think France are just full of really complicated people.
Yeah.
Like,
there's a lot of them.
With France, like, although they should absolutely walk this group, you always just got the back of your mind thinking, is there a meltdown around the corner? Because there's always a team that has a meltdown, and it's either the Dutch or the French, and usually one of those.
And the Dutch have just won. So the Dutch have just won,
so they're okay for this week at least, anyway. But yeah, I feel like with France, like they're missing a few big names, Pogba and Nkunku. Now with Benzema, I mean, quite a core of that squad that won the World Cup in 2018 is not there. Apparently, Rafael Varane's in line to start. He's nowhere going to be match fit. I don't really understand why they, from both a Manchester United fan point of view, but also from a France point of view, if Deschamps starts him, what does that say about the other centre backs? And secondly, is that really necessary against Australia? You've just been off for a month.
You could play Saliba in this and get away with it. I'm pretty sure you could get away with it. But we need to move on to group, because then we will have Group E. Denmark, Tunisia. Anybody want to talk about that? I feel like that's going to be one-sided as well. Denmark should really get the job done there.
Yeah, I think they've got enough quality to win. It'll be interesting to see if we can get the Damsgaard of 2 years ago, even, because that'd be great if we could get him as playing. A player. But otherwise, Eriksen on himself with maybe Yusuf Poulsen. Probably that combo will be enough for them against Tunisia. Not expecting much from Tunisia, to be fair. So fairly straightforward for Denmark.
Yeah, and hopefully maybe one of those players we said in our preview, maybe the Denmark squad will be one of the ones to stand up and make a protest and make a statement. So fingers crossed. And then on Wednesday/Thursday, there will be Group E. As I need to check the games, we're going to have Morocco taking on Croatia from Group F. Oh my God.
Thursday's a good day.
Thursday's a very good day. We got Group E and Group F. So we'll start with Germany and Japan. Andy, thoughts? Germany, Japan?
This is on Wednesday. I think we're getting our days.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Wednesday. Wednesday. Yeah. I think Japan have looked they're not as good as previous generations. I think they are lacking a little bit of style quality. And I think you'd back Germany to win that game easily. One game I am looking forward to actually is Belgium-Canada. Canada have really, really turned it around. And I think, especially when I did the when we did the World Cup preview with Tom Neff, who's over in Qatar at the moment, like the Canadians have really been on a proper journey. But you know, a bit like the Welsh have in qualifying for the Euros back in 2016. It was the end of a process that was started a good few years ago for late Gary Speed, and Canada have gone along the same sort of journey with John Herdman coming over from the women's Canadian team, who are very successful in their own right. And they have got a lot of obviously they've got the star quality in Alphonso Davies and Jonathan Davids, and they've also got quite a few well-established MLS players, and Estachio who plays for Porto, who's a very, very tidy little player. And I think they could shock a few people because this Belgium team, first of all, they're being managed by Roberto Martinez. That's an automatic.
There's one goal.
That's an automatic disadvantage to start with. And also, there's a lot of, especially when you look at their defence, they've still got Alderweireld and Jan Vertonghen and Axel Witsel. There's a lot of very aging players which they've not got round to replace him. There's a lot of players on the wrong side of 30 and on the wrong side of decent fitness levels. I'm looking at you, Mr. Hazard.
Who'd have thought Thorgan would have gone on to have the better career? It's a bit mad, isn't it?
I mean, at the moment, yeah, it's and it feels like there's a squad not really at it. I mean, Lukaku's not really been at it this season.
Barely played.
Yeah. And I think this is going to be my hot take. I think Canada are going to pull out a shock against Belgium. This is the hot take. I'm going to stick my neck out for.
Yeah,
yes, we are fully behind that. We're fully behind that. I love it. And then finally, we're going to have Group F. Although the other part of Group F, my God, I'm so confused. Croatia versus Morocco basically is a game I want to talk about. I'm very excited about this game as well. Croatia, again, a squad where maybe you look and think, the midfield is kind of getting the wrong side of 30 or the wrong side of 30. But this squad in general is very high quality. I think they are able to take on any team. And I think Morocco are not to be underestimated. Again, when I did the preview video with... Basri, he was talking about how on the wing they've got so many options like Ziyech, they've got Boufal. Do you remember he used to play for Southampton?
Oh, Southampton,
he's been really good for them. Our favourite from Badi Khedira, who has been called up. Hopefully he gets a shout. And they've got Hakimi at the wing back. Their goalkeeper is the Sevilla goalkeeper, right? There's a lot of quality in this team. I think this is a game, again, where it's two teams that are maybe not quite level, but they're two teams that are going to go for it. I've just really feel like this is going to be a very, very good, quick attacking game. So I'm excited about that one. The only other game we need to talk about is Spain-Costa Rica. Adam, I'm going to go to you for Spain-Costa Rica.
I think we might start seeing the likes of Gavi and Pedri really showing their worth here. Because I did mention in the preview that they've got quite an aging backline when you consider the likes of Azpilicueta mixed in with that team where you've got likes of Eric Garcia not in great form, for example. So I do worry if you have better quality against them. But I think if you're talking about in that midfield and attacking wise, they should have enough. Let's see how happens. But Almo, for example, on great form for Leipzig as well. So I think they've got enough quality for this particular match. I could see this being a 5-0 win for Spain, to be fair.
Nice. We're starting to get the boldness is starting to come out. And then just on Thursday, before we sit down and record again, it'll basically be the first match day done by the time you're listening to us again, listeners. We will have Switzerland taking on Cameroon, Uruguay taking on South Korea, Portugal taking on Ghana, and Brazil, Serbia. Andy, give me one of those games that you're looking forward to the most.
Oh, you know what? Again, I'm going to stick my neck out for a bit of a shock here. Is Ghana might beat Portugal.
Yes.
There's not an entirely baseless thing, but I feel like there's a little bit of tension in the Portuguese camp, mainly caused by one individual. I think there's the fact that the Portuguese, pundits and their fans have basically gone that, with Ronaldo, he's been shoehorned into the lineup without contributing as much as he used to. And don't get me wrong, he's a legendary figure for Portugal. Yeah, it's very relatable. They've also said, they're not the relationship, obviously, between Bruno Fernandes and Ronaldo isn't the best, both probably on the pitch and quite possibly off the pitch as well. Which, again, funnily enough, that's really, really familiar. And I think with their head coach as well, Santos, I think there's a little bit of frustration here that they could a better coach could be doing a little bit more with that Portugal team. And with Ghana, I think they've got a bit between their teeth. They've got a very competitive squad. Still, and I reckon they could pull off a shock. So that's going to be where maybe a bit of meltdown plus World Cup shock is going to be going.
Fingers crossed. Adam, a game there that you're looking forward to the most?
If it's in the games that are taking place on Thursday, I'm going to go for Brazil versus Serbia. That is in Group G. got a mixture of like qualities here going on, and I'm really excited to see how Serbia do. Speaking to Marco, who you interviewed for the preview,
Okay.
and he seems like he's having a whale of a time at the moment in Qatar. That granted, he did say he hasn't been exposed to all of Qatar at the moment, but yeah, certainly I think this team is very exciting. It's just how will Vlahovic and Mitrovic and Kostic and Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, who might be going to Juventus, maybe we'll wait and see. Yeah, and then against the Brazil side, who I'm definitely tipping to win this World Cup. So it'll be fascinating to see. And have you seen the video clips of their team morale and how they're getting together?
Yeah.
Richarlison seems like on a mission to just piss off people at the moment.
That's his
way,
reason to live. That's why he's on this earth.
Yeah. But yeah, it's beautiful. But that aside, I think this could be a fascinating match. I could see this being end to end as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm really keen to see, because I'm yet to see a defense that is fully comfortable with Mitrovic. And I want to see how the Brazil defense deals with Mitrovic, because he challenges everyone that he comes up against. I think he could cause a few problems. And then, just in case he doesn't, you got Dusan Vlahovic anyway. So just in case.
I'm also looking forward to seeing, because obviously the Serb defenders are quite a no-nonsense bunch, and it'd be interesting to see how many lumps they're going to kick out on Neymar over the course of 90 minutes.
That's a very good point. They're not going to take much like of the dancing before just going through him, I think. Yeah. We will see. Oh, it's going to be good. I'm just going to quickly throw up Uruguay versus South Korea. Sorry, Switzerland, Cameroon, but Uruguay, South Korea. I think Uruguay could actually surprise a few people in how much quality they do have. You have to remember they do have Valverde in midfield. They do have Nunez up front. They have got a lot of quality. I feel like they could really, they could kind of show off against South Korea, I think. I worry for South Korea in this game a little bit. But that is our preview now. And as we will continue to do during the World Cup, we are going to end the show with our partnership with Cards of Qatar. And for this part, I'm going to read you 3 short stories, again, about people who have given it all for this tournament to happen, and not willingly. So first, starting with Mohamed Russell Parvez. The body of Mohamed Russell Parvez was found in a trash bin in the Qatar few days before Christmas in 2020. He was 33 and an only son. Sharina Akhtar Banu, his mother, received his body in the home village Dulapator in western Bangladesh the following month. He was a construction worker when he fell from a 10-story building. His mother says after his death, the wife moved in with his parents. She was satisfied with the financial compensation from the company, but no money in the world can replace the loss of a human life, she says. Next, Shohag Madbar. On May 15th, 2020, migrant Shohag Madbar died at his room at the age of 30. The death certificate from the Qatari government mentions the cause of death as a heart attack. Due to his uncertain job situation and the irregular wage, Shohag lived with a constant tension. The family believes the pressure caused a mental shock. When asked, Shohag's uncle, MD Kamaluddin, said that the family had been struggling since his death. Shohag's father, who is a farmer, his mother, and their 2 daughters lost all dreams when they sent their only young bread earner to Qatar. And finally, Srinivas Narakula. Srinivas was a crane operator in Qatar and worked for a local construction company. I was told that he died due to natural causes, but I do not believe that. How can a completely healthy man just die on the spot? I think he was killed, says Srinivas' wife, Anitha Narakula. Srinivas was an esteemed worker. In 2019, he received a smartphone from his boss. My husband told me that several of the colleagues became jealous. They started fighting. Anitha remembers. 2 months later, he was dead when the body came in a package. There was a smaller package next to it. In it lay the phone. We will see you on Friday.